Welcome viewers to the Personal Injury Law Show. I'm Tony Carbone, personal injury lawyer of many years. With me, John Carancis, another experienced personal injury lawyer. Good evening, John. How are you?
Good evening, Tony. Good evening, viewers.
And John, we've got back Dr. Charles Castle, very eminent doctor, been around for 35 plus years. I don't want to, do it for your age, Doc, but you're looking good, and thanks for coming back. I really appreciate it. I'm sure the viewers appreciate it too.
Good evening. It's a pleasure to be here.
Tony, what's in the news?
John, plenty. But this week what we're going to do is, we're talking about that Dr. Peters, the one that infected the quite a few women at the abortion clinic. Now, something like 1,100 women have been tested.
It's been going on for a while, hasn't it, Tony?
It has. But the angle of the story today is that one of the victims wants a doctor jailed. But it's been widely investigated by the police, and there's a task force set up to investigate him. But the thing is, the police are saying that it's a very complex case, and they don't think charges will ever be laid because they just cannot pinpoint how the ladies were infected. Is it that complicated, Doctor?
Well, it is, because there are a whole range of steps that the anaesthetist does from the time that they first assess the patient, to looking at the patient, to administering the anaesthetic, to giving the anaesthetic, to looking after the patient in recovery. And so where in that process the transmission of infection occurred is going to be very, very hard to identify.
Well, that was what the story was about. People upset that he won't be charged. But John, you'd think that civilly these infected women will be compensated, won't they?
You'd think so. It's the onus of proof is on the balance of probabilities in regards to negligence.
And in a criminal case, it's beyond reasonable doubt, and there's always doubt because of what the doctor said, that you can't pinpoint when they're infected. There's always going to be some doubt. In
the criminal sphere, you'd have to show the intent, and that's going to be pretty difficult, I would have thought.
Beyond reasonable doubt too, which is a lot higher test.
Exactly.
Whereas when we're talking about the civil test, viewers, we're talking about tipping the scales by 1%. It's a balance of probs. Anyway, let's get back to our topic of last week, Doctor, and we're talking about chronic pain. Now,
yes.
Very interesting subject, because there's a debate about what chronic pain is. There's a debate as to whether it's psychological or physical or both. And I think it's psychological, John, and I'm not sure what you say.
I disagree, Tony. I think it's physical.
Yeah?
Well, I would have a foot in both camps, because I think it's a combination of physical and psychological, and the underlying problem of persistent pain is a physical problem, but psychological components are vitally important and crucial. And the other thing to remember is that in different times, different parts will be physical and different parts will be psychological.
Doc, do you recall there was a case of Mr. Stambolakis that went before the Court of Appeal in Victoria?
Yes.
And she was a cleaner, and she had a back injury, and John, you're familiar with this case.
Yes.
And this particular lady, when she got to court, she lost her case in the first instance and went to the Court of Appeal. And in the Court of Appeal, in short, what the Chief Judge said was that, in his opinion, chronic pain was psychological, and not physical.
He found that the worker has the onus to prove the injury, or what type of injury we have here. In this instance, the worker did not disentangle.
What's that mean, John, in simple language?
Did not strip away what the psychological aspects of the injury were and what the physical aspects of the injury were.
And Doc, that's not easy to do, is it?
That's not easy to do at all. But in 2011, as I said last week, persistent pain has an underlying physical basis, but psychological factors are important. It is very difficult to try and extract the psychological component from the physical component, because in anybody, both are going to be present.
Doc, there's a chronic pain scenario of chronic regional pain syndrome, and what's the other one you mentioned, John? Reflex...
regional pain syndrome.
Yeah, are they the same thing?
Well,
complex regional pain syndrome.
That's right. There is complex regional pain syndrome type 1, which we used to call reflex sympathetic dystrophy, which is a problem of the autonomic nervous system. And then there is complex
regional pain syndrome 2.
Complex regional pain syndrome type 2. Thank you for that, Tony, which affects a particular part of the nerves.
In simple language, what is it, Doc? Because I mean, us lawyers get confused, and I'd imagine the poor person out there.
Well, we're talking about a physical injury, aren't we?
We are talking about physical injuries in both of these cases. You may be aware that in some patients who've had legs amputated, for example, they will often say for years afterwards, well, my big toe is itching. That is an example of complex regional pain syndrome type 2, where the patient can still feel that affected part.
But the foot's been amputated, Doctor.
That's right.
Phantom pain.
Phantom pain is another word for the same thing. Now, the second type...
So why wouldn't that be psychological, Doctor? I mean, there's no leg there, so...
Well, that's a very complex discussion. I'm not sure that I can explain it clearly, but it has to do with the implant of memories on your brain. Complex regional pain syndrome type 1 is a different condition where the autonomic nervous system reacts differently after an injury, and that causes swelling, changes in the skin blood flow, changes in temperature, sometimes wasting of bones as well. And that is clearly a physical problem.
And John, in your experience, someone that's got type 1 or 2 generally goes well in court? You don't...
As long as you can show that there is a physical basis to the injury.
Well, the doctor just told us that it is physically based.
Exactly.
So...
Yes, the difficulty though, as one of the cases showed, is that complex regional pain syndrome is not always present. It's a fluctuating condition. And while for some people it is blindingly obvious that they've got that problem all the time, for other patients it is a condition which comes and goes.
Doc, is it that they don't have it all the time because they can't diagnose it on objective scanning?
No, that's a different problem altogether. There are separate tests that can be used to diagnose complex regional pain syndrome type 1, but like all tests in medicine, they're not 100% reliable.
Okay, well, and so it's a serious condition, obviously.
It is a serious condition, and it can be very disabling for patients.
Okay. We're going to have to go to a sponsors break, aren't we, John? So
Yes, we'll see you straight after the sponsors break, viewers.
So don't go away.